So there was a time when there was crossover between this 7-foot-tall homo and Homo sapiens sapiens. I'm sorry. I know. I do it on purpose. Yeah.
Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be forgot.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello, and welcome to Occultae Veritatis podcast. I'm Ood Gallifrey, and in studio with me I have...
Sage Murray.
Richard Bigley.
Now...
Oh, disrespect.
Oh, fuck, I done it again.
How
dare.
My hell sentence is extended.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm Soundboard Demon, by the way.
Yeah. Now, me and Sage are co-writing this episode, and even though I tower above my housemates at a whopping 5'10", I am not the red-headed giant we were talking about today.
Not this time.
Yeah, because only my beard is red. My hair is brown.
It's true, it is. I'm looking right at him.
Yeah. Today we're talking about the red-headed giants of the Nevada Basin that apparently were cannibalistic monsters that predated on local people. But we're going to dive into all that in a little bit. But we're going to consume a beverage that contains a fruit that was also consumed by the people we're talking about today.
Dope. So what's your poison?
So, what's your poison?
Poison today is locally sourced, locally produced choke cherry syrup mixed with to make a lovely soda. I would suggest letting it really, high pour it so it mixes well.
The ring came off my pudding can.
Fuck. Oh, it starts out thick. So we just have the choke cherry syrup sitting in the bottom. By the way, we're talking about the Paiute people today, who, in the summer months, descended into higher elevations, the meadows and forests of the Nevada Basin, also called the Great Basin. And one of the major fruits they would pick there is choke cherries. So we're enjoying some choke cherry soda.
Whoa.
Hell yeah.
Very effervescent.
That's delicious.
Effervescent.
Isn't that great? That carbonation. Yeah.
Bubbly.
Yeah, we stole bubbles from the earth and we put them in our drinks. We are commanders of the land.
It tastes way better when it's stirred.
That's so good. Did you guys make this?
It is a bastardized version of a Korean thing called chung, where they usually will take a fruit and they will cover it in sugar, and then the osmosis pulls the liquids out, and that is your liquid, and then you basically get candied fruit. This is done in a bastardized way where the berries were broken open so it mixed easier, and then sat in the fridge for a month and a half or so.
Oh, good.
Sucks all the juice out, and then you strain it out and it's good.
It's delicious.
It's good.
It's fun because it made me think I was at one of those old soda pop diners where they would mix the soda in with the syrup right in front of you.
It's kind of the idea, yeah.
Back in my day.
Back in my day!
Like the Broadway roastery when you order an Italian soda or whatever. Yeah, kind of like that.
Precisely.
This is so good.
Or like a soda stream.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing as a soda stream, just
Except
without
we
carbonating it ourselves.
Yeah, we just didn't carbonate it ourselves, and the syrup was homemade by the demon. in hell.
Correct.
And it's probably full of good things, like vitamin C.
And brimstone. Just a little bit.
A touch of brimstone.
Just a touch of brimstone.
Are choke cherries parasitic? Like, do they choke the life out of other plants? Is that where the name comes from?
No,
it's because they're tart.
Yeah, they're super tart, and they make your mouth feel funny.
Okay.
So,
that's better than being discovered by like Alexander Choke or some shit, you know?
Yeah.
Or like the Sturdy Stone building.
Don't tell me it's named after someone called Stone.
No, it's not. Oh, it is. It is. Sorry. Yes. Say. Sorry. Yes.
What?
Wow. It is named. It's named by someone who's. It's not because it's a sturdy building made of stone.
Just like the Lands Raider. It's not a Land Raider. It's Lands Raider.
Yeah.
Or John Running, who invented running when he walked twice at the same time.
Wait a minute. One of those things is a joke.
This gets 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's a nice change. Every now and again, I like to shock my liver by drinking something not alcoholic.
What is this?
Yeah. Where are the toxins in this? Where's he hiding them?
It is very much sugar, though, because it is just equal parts berries and sugar.
I can't think of a good segue into giant people.
Wow, so this is Lovelock Cave here in Nevada, just 20 miles away from the town of Lovelock. Imagine, 10,000 or 8,000 years ago, giants were potentially living here. So I'm standing just at the base of Lovelock Cave, Nevada, 20 or so miles from the town of Lovelock, on the edge of the Humboldt Sink, the huge lake that was here many thousands of years ago. And this is a legendary place because red-haired cannibal giants are supposed to have been found here. When they were digging for guano in 1911 onwards, they found all these artifacts and duck decoys. And these are the hills here, and it's just the other side of this rocky peak here. We're going to walk around and climb up to the entrance to Lovelock Cave. But you can see the view. It's quite remarkable. And this would have all been filled with water. There's some water here, filled with reeds and water and ducks, many other wildfowl and fish. And that was the prominent way these so-called red-haired cannibalistic giants called the Saskatoon actually survived. And that's it right up the top there. You can see, you start to see the entrance to the cave. So you can see the cave goes all the way down there and much further below down there. It's huge. And up there as well. So this is just the first part of the cave. You can see, you can smell the guano in here actually. You kind of get into the cave just down there, but there's an information board here. It gives you a bit of information about, the excavation that they say began in 1912. It was properly excavated by Llewellyn Loud from 1924 with archaeologist Mark Harrington. They excavated 40 storage pits inside the cave, and one of them, they found all the duck decoys, thousands of them. Also, fishing gear, bark sandals, huge moccasins, shell beads, even the wooden grasshopper we saw at the museum. 20,000 artifacts were discovered. Many of the storage pits are really interesting. They were kind of different levels. This is where they kept all the artifacts, the decoys and other such things, and the sandals. They were covered with grass and then with stone. Because they were all at different levels, completely engulfed by guano, which is like bat dung, which you can kind of smell here already. It means they could date the area here, and the earliest date they officially got was 2600 BC. So let's head down into the main part of the cave here. Wow, you can actually see the burn marks here of where they probably smoked out the giants, according to Paiute tradition. Wow, this is amazing. These are what's left of the evidence of when the Paiutes and other tribes burnt out the entrance to sort of wash out all the giants and kill them. So we have actual evidence you can see here, so the tradition is true.
let's talk about the Paiute people. So, thousands of years before the Spanish conquistadors came to Turtle Island, there was an estimated 100 million indigenous people living in what is now called North and South America. And then, their population got reduced by several tens of millions after colonization arrived and, smallpox spread throughout the land and they experienced literal genocide of their people. But we're going to talk about a time before colonizers arrived and ruined everything. I don't know if this is news to many, but hopefully it's not news to you. Indigenous people are not homogenous. Turns out their cultures were diverse, contrasting and unique, dividing into hundreds of different groups. And today we're talking about one group of indigenous people that populated an area of North America known as the Great Basin. This is an area of mostly prairie grassland and desert that contains most of Utah and Nevada. Now, just as a caveat, I'm not indigenous. I don't have cultural context in any of this. The sources I tried to use, I tried to find sources that were indigenous and were from Paiute people. So I'm trying to speak from their perspectives as much as I can, but I do not have the cultural context.
Nor do I. I'm doing that too. Yeah. We not neither of us do, but we both did try to find sources from actual Paiute people.
Oh, very white.
Yeah, we're all very white here.
So the Paiute people are the peoples that adapted to the mostly unwelcoming environment of the Mojave Desert. Do you talk about the Saskatoon tribes in your section?
No.
Okay. So
all my stuff's just legends.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the Saskatoon tribes is an origin legend. I'm going to start the history here because we really don't know when we crossed the land bridge and made it to North America. That's still a question yet to be answered in archaeology. So I'm just going to start history with their origin story. So their history begins with the Saskatoon tribes carried by Coyote, the mother of many. An elder goddess in Paiute legends gave a very special sack containing all indigenous people to Coyote. Now, if you're familiar with Coyote, I'm not sure why they keep on giving him important jobs. He's a very powerful deity, but he does tend to mess around a little bit, and on this mission he did as well. He was told to travel north with the bag and not to open it. A short while into his trip, when he reached the Mojave Desert, he realized that this bag, containing millions of indigenous people, was really heavy.
Maybe that's what the issue is Coyote is just sort of a poorly paid office temp with a bad attitude.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, we got to get him a sustainable deity wage. I don't know if that's paid in souls, but we gotta get him on a level par with all the other deities.
He needs a union.
Yeah. So the bag was very heavy, and when he got to the Mojave Desert, he was feeling the strain of the bag. Also, his curiosity was piqued. From the beginning of the journey, he heard singing and dancing and drumming coming from the bag. So with the curiosity piqued and him tired from his mission, he put the bag down and he peeked inside. And all of a sudden, all the indigenous people got out. And as try as he might to get these fast little people back in the bag, he was unable to, and they spread to become all the peoples of the Great Basin. So, the Paiute people, they came from this bag of many. They were farmers. Each spring they would travel to some of the few rivers that run through the basin, because the basin is an area of land that once contained a great lake, but it drained by the time that indigenous people started populating the area. But there are still a few rivers running throughout the area, remnants of this great lake. And along the banks, they dug fairly intricate irrigation ditches. And they would plant seeds along these irrigation ditches. Mostly corn, pumpkins, squashes, and sunflowers, but lots. And then, before the spring ended, they would leave to higher elevations within the Great Basin, to the meadows and forests of the Great Basin. And in their absence, the rivers would rise in the spring and summer, flood these irrigation ditches, and self-water all these crops.
That was like the Nile, right? Like what they did in the Nile?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And without their intervention, all these crops would grow on their own. And while the summer heat was hitting the desert, their crops would be watered near these rivers. And they would spend their summer months, the months that are too hot to be in the desert, in the meadows and springs of this landscape, where they would hunt mule deer, elk, bighorn sheep, woodchucks, ducks, and other waterfowl. And they would also gather berries, nuts, shoots, and roots. The most popular berry that they gathered was, of course, the choke cherry that came from our drink that we had today. Then they would return after the summer months to a fully grown crop along the banks of the river in the harvest months of fall. They would have a bunch of smoked meat that they hunted all summer long, and they would use all these crops that they grew and the berries that they picked and the meat that they smoked to survive the winter, the harsh winter of the desert. And that's how they evolved to survive this harsh environment of the Mojave Desert. They were a hardy people who were living in an environment that is deadly to most people if you're not prepared for it. Like the mafia, to this day, drives people out to the desert so they die in the desert. And these people have found a way to live and thrive in this area. Of course, when European colonizers arrived, the Paiute people were marginalized. The game they sustainably hunted for thousands of years were overhunted. The forests were cut down. The river water was consumed by colonizer communities and diverted to the point where the irrigation ditches wouldn't be fed.
Before other peoples came, they shared this land. Before maps divided the lands and policies confined First Nations to the reservations, the Shoshone and Paiute peoples shared the resources that became the tri-state area of Idaho, Oregon, and Nevada. While the bands of both tribes moved around the region, in these lands they would come together as the patterns of hunting and gathering brought them to the same place as the cycle of time played out, as the Creator had intended. Once the non-Indians came to their lands, the Shoshone and Paiute had similar unfortunate experiences as other tribal groups with these new peoples. The travelers on the Oregon Trail, as well as the California Trail, cut through their territories, devastating the land and resources of the tribes.
When these non-Indian people got to a place called Three Island Crossing on the Snake River, these folks were really in terrible, terrible shape. And our people helped them, took care of them.
Frequent confrontations occurred during the immigration and ultimate occupation of prime lands of the region. The discovery of gold in the Boise Basin brought a flood of miners in 1862. In 1863, Fort Boise was constructed and the city of Boise sprang up. During this period, vigilantes had placed a bounty on Indian scalps, and hunting Indians became the order of the day in February of 1866. $100 for each male scalp, $50 for a female scalp, and $25 for each child scalp.
And we became involved in what's called the Bannock War of 1878. Everybody that was involved in that war, the only way that they survived was through the Owyhee Canyon lands. Became a sanctuary for our people to survive because of the great difficulty that the military had trying to flush our people out of those areas. And we were able to stay alive because of those lands. And they're very important to us at this point in time as sacred areas.
The Western Shoshone of northern Nevada signed a peace treaty in 1863 which allowed for the traversing and settlement of lands in the Nevada Territory. The Western Shoshone were granted Duck Valley as their reservation in 1877. Duck Valley was historically a joint use area of the Shoshone and Paiute. Nearly a decade later, the Paiute joined them on the reservation following release from a prisoner of war camp as a result of participation in the Bannock War of 1878.
There was very horrible things that happened to our people. A lot of our people suffered terribly. The elders that fell on the trail where our people weren't allowed to help them or pick them up. They could only be forced to jump over them, step over them. And they were left there to die, to freeze to death. And that's what happened when the people got to Fort Simcoe. They were held there for a little over 5 years as prisoners of war. And out of roughly 700 people, I think 175 or 80 made it out of there alive.
So when the colonizers arrived, they ruined everything, but our story takes place before the colonizers arrived and ruined everything. Back in an era of stories and legend for the Paiute people.
Yep. So they had obviously very many beautiful stories. So I'll read you what I found to be their creation story, as told by Wilson Weewa, a spiritual leader and oral historian of the Warm Springs Paiute. So this is all his words. In our legend, the world began at the base of Steens Mountain, which is in Oregon. That is where Coyote and Wolf created the world we have today. Wolf was called Munaa, our father, because he was the father of all of creation. At that time, there was nothing in the world. It was just dark. But our people could hear one another in the darkness. They talked about making a world. Wolf told Coyote to go out from the darkness and find land. Coyote went out, but he could not find any place. So they asked who would dive under the water. Different animals in the darkness volunteered to dive into the water. The first one was Otter. He said, "I'm a good swimmer. I will go and see what is holding up the water." When the otter swam down for 1 day and then 2 days before he came up, he had almost drowned. He said he couldn't find anything down under the water. He never even made it to the bottom. Then Muskrat said, "I'll go next." He said, "I'm a good swimmer, better than Otter." He dove into the water and went down and down and down. He was gone for 1 day and then 2 days. On the 3rd day, he came back up. He was so tired and he was starving. But he said he never made it to the bottom of the water either. The third one, who said, "Let me try," was the mud hen, Saya. Mud hen said, "I'll go down and see what is holding up the water." Mud hens are real small little birds. Everyone asked, "You want to go?" But Wolf said, "Go ahead and try." So Mud hen dove into the water and went way down there. When it came back up, it had mud on the end of its bill, and there was some grass on that mud. Wolf and the Coyote stood on that piece of mud. Then Coyote said, "I'm getting tired of standing here all the time. This land needs to get bigger." Wolf, his older brother, started singing a song, a doctor song. While he was singing, the land started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When he would stop singing, Wolf and Coyote would walk around on the land. But Coyote was always complaining, "This land should be bigger than this, so there will be room for both of us." So Wolf started singing again, and the land got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This time, Coyote walked to the edge of the land to the east to see how far the water was. When he came back, he said, "Well, if we're going to put people here, then this land has got to be bigger." He was talking about the animal people, not people like us human beings. So Wolf sang his song again, and the land kept growing. For 5 days, Wolf sang. When he finished, Coyote went off to find the edge of the land. He found the land had been made like it is today. When Coyote came back, Wolf saw him coming and said, "Don't tell me this land isn't big enough now. That's all I'm going to do." So that's how the world was created, half water and half land. After the world was made, the fish in the water started swimming into the land. And when they swam into the land, they made creeks and rivers. It was their tails moving back and forth that made the water go up into the land. Then Wolf told the fish, "That's where you're going to be now. You'll always be in the water." When the Coyote left again to go to the east, the fish were swimming into the dirt too. They were making rivers over there on the other side, in the eastern part of the world. That's how rivers were created by fish that came in from the oceans. At the time the world was made, there was darkness, and the other animals were still in the darkness. They said, "I think Wolf Munaa has made a world now. We should go there." They were wandering around in darkness, and one of the voices said, "Grab onto my tail." And they started going. All the animals were holding onto each other's tails, following one another in the darkness and out of the darkness. When they were going, they could see a light, as if you blocked out all the stars in the sky and left only one. They could see that light, and they started going that way. They traveled for 5 days, following one another. The one in front would sing, and they'd all go toward that light. And that light was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon they came to the edge of the darkness, where the light was. And when they came out of that place onto the dry ground, the place our people came out was called Malheur Cave. Bald Eagle was the first one that led them out of there. When he stuck his head out of the ground to see what was outside in the darkness, they let go of his tail. When he turned around to tell them what he saw up there, his tail went out, and then the light made his tail turn white too. When he came out on the ground, all the animals came out, and they saw the land as it is today. That's how the world was created, and the animals came onto the land. Then the animals went in all directions, north and south and all over. At that time, the land was still wet and muddy, with nothing growing in it. Again, Coyote claimed that there was no dry land to stand on. That coyote's kind of a complainy guy. Wolf told the people to build fires at the edge of the water. So the animal people made fires to dry the land. Soon the land became dry. The birds flew over the earth and dropped the seeds they found somewhere. These seeds made the grass and the trees grow. After the earth was dry, Wolf called them all together once again. He told them, now that you've all come onto the land, everybody has to pick where they're going to live. That's when bighorn sheep, or Copa, said, we're going to live in the mountains. We want to be in the rocks. So they moved into the mountains and they became Copa. They said, we like the name Copa, and that's what they became. Deer said, we like the mountains too, but we don't want to be way up high. We want to be down where there's trees. We want to be Tehudya. So they became Deer, the mule deer. Then all the animals said where they're going to live and what they were going to be. And they all started naming themselves. So that's how they all named themselves. Wolf, the leader, was Muheru. That's why he was the one that was asking them, who do you want to be? The next one said, I'm going to be a squirrel, and I'm going to make my home in the ground. So they became ground squirrels. It was the same with the groundhog. He wanted to live in the ground too, but under the rocks. He chose the name Kedu. At this time, the animal people could all talk the same language. Then they started to argue with one another, and the animals that got along together moved to the same place to live together. One day, Wolf said, I'm going to have a big meeting. I want everybody to come. You all put on your good clothes and come. I'm going to have a big meeting.
Good clothes?
Yep, apparently. After Wolf's announcement, all the animals went to the mountains and found different colored rocks. They ground the rocks into paint. They got yellow paint and red paint and blue and green and black and white paint. And they painted themselves. They wanted to be impressive to one another. And each one wanted to look better than the others. When they got to the meeting, Wolf looked at them and said, what have you done to yourselves? They were all painted up. Then Wolf commanded, from this day forward, you're not going to talk to one another anymore because you argue too much. So he changed them all into different kinds of animals. He made it so the mountain sheep couldn't talk to the deer anymore, the deer couldn't talk to the birds, and the birds couldn't talk to the fish. And they could no longer make children together. Only fish could be with fish, only eagles with other eagles, and only deer could be with other deer. And that's how they were all separated from each other. They could not talk a common language after that. Today, the animals are still painted with the colors that they put on that day when they came to Wolf's meeting. So that's how the animal people all came onto this land. In all the legends, we never refer to them as animals. We always refer to them as people because they were here first. They were the Nuwudu. They were the first people. That's why we have this name, to respect them. And today we Paiutes call ourselves Nuwu because we're the second people. It's the same word, but Nuwudu is for the animal people and Nuwu is for us because we were because we were created after the animal people. That's how we were created. That's why Paiutes and animals are brothers and sisters. We're all the same.
I just want to point out that the mud hen is also called a coot. Or, from where Arthur grew up, they were called shit ducks.
But now, not all the Paiute legends are like cute or funny. It is time to talk about giants. The term giant was coined in the year 1297 as a term to describe super huge humans that pop up in the myths of nearly all cultures around the world. Over the last 200-ish years, as science has got better, actual bones and skeletons have been found, ranging from 7 to 12 feet. So we have more than just stories such as Goliath from the Bible to go off of. So the Paiute giants, the red-headed giants, were called the Siteka, which means tool eaters. Tool is a fibrous water plant. It is said that the Paiute people drove the giants to live on rafts made of this stuff, and it naturally became a part of their diet. According to Paiute oral history, tool was not the preferred lunch of the Siteka. They were said to be cannibals, eating the flesh of Paiutes they conquered in their enduring war. The neighboring tribes joined with the Paiutes to finally annihilate the Siteka, driving them into what is now known as the Lovelock Cave in western Nevada. The tribes piled brush at the cave mouth and set it on fire, killing the last of the Siteka. The giants were forgotten, continuing only in Paiute myth until 1911. Miners extracting bat guano from the Lovelock Cave unearthed giant jaw bones and thousands of other Paiute artifacts. So good science reigns on the giant claim, because the miners were not trained in anatomy and just could have made a mistake and thought that the bones of large cave bears were human bones. The lack of proper documentation calls the tourist displays of the bones into question. Giants sell knickknacks in an otherwise forgettable region. Even the red hair may be due to chemical reactions over the centuries, reducing the pigment down to a red color. So it all might be wrong, but they did find shoes that were measuring up to 15 inches, indicating that the owners were above 7 feet tall. So that's pretty tall. Most of the well-preserved skeletons and mummies were destroyed through mining or through human, nonsense. This is a quote from some scientists. They said the best specimen of the adult mummies was boiled and destroyed by a local fraternal lodge, which wanted the skeleton for initiation purposes. Yeah, that was from Llewellyn Lodge and Mark Raymond Harrington. So according to these archaeologists, Llewellyn Lodge and Mark Raymond Harrington, they wrote in 1929 that the Northern Paiutes have accounts of an extinct people living in various localities in Nevada. They had expressed doubts over whether they were real historical traditions or whether they should be regarded as an attempt by the Northern Paiute to explain the archaeological remains of the cultural period preceding their own. A proper scientific excavation of Lovelock Cave in 1924 produced 3 human bones with signs that their owner had been eaten, possibly due to a famine. These had been split to extract the marrow, as animal bones were split, and probably indicate cannibalism during a famine. So they summarize the descriptions of the Seteka given to them by local informants like this. Characteristics of this ancient people are that they made some of their implements differently from the Northern Paiute and of different stone materials. They had spears and no arrows, while the Northern Paiute had arrows but no spears. They were mean, contemptible, foolish, degraded cannibals, had red hair, which they were excessively fond of decorating with bone ornaments, and yet were so poor that they dressed in robes made from the skin and feathers of the mud hen. In a collection of specimens from Nevada, which is every object which is unfamiliar to a Northern Paiute is attributed to them. So this lady, Sarah Winnemucca, daughter of Paiute chief Winnemucca, wrote in 1883 about a small tribe of barbarians who ate her people. In her book, Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims, she wrote that, in quotes, "After my people had killed them all, the people round us call us Seydukara. It means conqueror. It also means enemy. My people say the tribe we exterminated had reddish hair. I have some of their hair, which has been handed down from father to son. I have a dress which has been in our family for many years, trimmed with reddish hair. I'm going to wear it sometime when I lecture. It's called a mourning dress. But no one has such a dress but my family." She also reported hearing old women say that white people ate people, quoting one as saying, "Yes, they do eat people because they ate each other up in the mountains last winter." The evidence of cannibalized humans at Lovelock Cave, where the Seteka were found, indicates that someone was eating other humans. Whether it was the giants or not, or whether it was a famine compelling them to eat humans, or whether they had just acquired the taste, is unknowable.
So in her book, Sarah Winnemucca states the flaming arrows were shot into this cave to burn out the cannibal giants. Let's read from the archaeological report of 1929. Tending to confirm the Northern Paiute legend of the assault on the cave are fire arrow foreshafts shown in plate 46. The inflammable parts are dry reed in one instance and grass in the other. Several were found in a partially burned condition, including one in which the inflammable part was a piece of dry, rotten wood or punk, which would glow and smolder. The longest specimen shown is 7 1/4 inches long. A very large number of arrow fragments were found in the crevices of the rock fall, blocking the mouth of the cave, as if they had been shot into it, and in rare instances where a part of the latest cave floor was found intact, the rushes and grasses in the cave had been burned to the depth of a foot or so, as if fired by the flaming arrows mentioned in the legend. This is from the 1929 UC Berkeley Archaeological Report, written by Loud and Harrington. The legend is confirmed thus far. In this archaeological report, which I discovered, There's actual mentions of them finding giants in this cave, red-headed giants. Now, we're going to go to the location marked on the map inside the cave that they found the giant. Take a look. I'm in the north end of the cave. In this location is where archaeologists found the remains of the red-headed cannibal giant. This is the north central part of the cave. The cannibal giant had a rope around his neck and his legs were bound, just like he had been hung. They had hung a red-headed cannibal giant. Who did it? We don't know. Was it the Native Americans when they defeated them in battle? Was it other red-headed cannibal giants? We don't know. That location. This is the archaeological report of 1929. I'm standing in the exact spot mentioned in the report. In the north central part of the cave, 4 feet deep, was a striking body of a man. His body was mummified and his hair was distinctly red. There was a grass rope about his neck with a knot under the left ear. The rope was about 8 feet long. The feet were bound together from the ankle to above the knees with rope. The mummification was complete except for part of the abdomen. The other mummies all had red hair. I think there were 4 or 5 more. Those that appeared to be women were small. This was not due to the shrinking of the bodies in mummification, because the man was a giant. This is a 1929 archaeological report from University of California, Berkeley. The man was a giant. The woman had on moccasins, which reached clear to their knees, and buckskin coats beaded with shells. 2 of them had on a kind of buckskin gown that came down to the knees. These bodies were from the north end of the cave. So this is the spot that the cannibal giant, with a rope around his neck and his legs bound with red hair, was found in this exact spot in the archaeological report. Let's look under here. This is the south end of the cave. Multiple bodies were found in this location. Now, when the guano miners came through here, they had little regard for the skeletons. Outside, which I'll show you in a minute, was the refuse pile. There were skeletons piled on top of the rocks. They took the skulls with them. That's where a lot of the skulls ended up in the museums. The giant skulls ended up in the museums. Not sure what's in there. They were found by the guano miners. This is the original entrance to the cave. Right there. The entrance over there was blasted by the miners with dynamite. This is how the Native Americans and the cannibal giants would have gotten into this cave. Right down this little trail. Let's talk about how many skeletal remains, both Native American and cannibal giants, were found in this cave. It is difficult to estimate how many bodies were left in the cave. It is quite likely that members of the crew excavating the guano took away many bones, especially the skulls. It would appear from a study of skeletal material brought to the museum that the guano crew found at least 13 skeletons and numerous skulls. The remains of some of which were salvaged from the hillside refuse pile left by the guano crew. In other words, they took the material out and they just threw the skeletons onto the pile outside. The result that the full number of skeletons found by the writer in this cave is estimated to be 32. That includes the cannibal giant that was found in the north end that appeared to have been hung. 32, making all told at least 45 individuals were deposited in this cave. It's not a huge cave, but there were over 45 skeletons, Native Americans, cannibal giants, found in this cave. I don't think I'd want to live in this cave.
That's kind of the pickle we're left in. We have these oral-based stories of these red-headed giants predating upon the Paiute people, and the Paiute people go as far to say that they first secluded them to the nearby lake and forced them to live on rafts, and then finally eliminated these cannibalistic people by driving them to Lovelock Cave and eliminating them. These legends were then also, as Sage mentioned, co-opted after the bat guano miners came in, and sensationalized to become a marketable story to pass around. But let's look at geologically and archaeologically what we know about Lovelock Cave and the people within.
So this is where you ruin the story for everybody.
Oh yeah.
Hey?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Just making sure.
It's mostly white people's fault. I'll say that.
Usually.
It always is.
Yeah. So, around 14,000 years ago, the Great Basin was performing the task that gave it the name Basin. You can go on Google Maps and place yourself at the mouth of Lovelock Cave, and if you look out from it, the Great Basin looks like a giant empty basin that once held a gigantic lake, and 14,000 years ago, it did. Lake Lahontan. It had been collecting water from incoming rivers for thousands of years, and as a geological basin, geological basins have rivers that flow into it, but no rivers that really flow out of it. So it just kept on collecting more and more and more. And the climate was at a temperature where the water wouldn't be evaporated away faster than the rivers would drain. So over thousands of years, this great basin just started to fill up this valley. And what is now today the Mojave Desert was under sometimes up to 900 feet of water. And it covered 22,000 square kilometers, nearly all of Nevada and Utah. And then, about 10,000 years ago, the climate began to warm up at the end of an ice age. And the temperature went up over those 1,000 years so quickly that the water began to evaporate faster than the Great Basin's rivers would fill it. And the Great Basin drained and became more of the climate that we know today. A great land of dry deserts with some meadows and forests at the sides where the mountains are. That's where Lovelock Cave came from. When it was still on the shores of this great lake, it was being constantly struck by waves along the shore. And thousands of years of waves hitting this limestone inlet of the rock mountains that contained the lake, it slowly carved out the Lovelock Cave. And by 9,000 years ago, most of Lake Lahontan had drained away, leaving the Mojave Desert behind, along with the deep and useful Lovelock Cave. A lot of local peoples, including the Paiute, made use of the cave, although exact ownership and timelines are hard to interpret. Fossilized human shit has been found inside the cave.
Jump scare.
Oh yeah, showing that its inhabitants mostly ate fish.
That's going to be my new metal band.
Yeah.
Will be fossilized human shit.
Oh yeah.
No, that's like a slam band.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure it's a slam band.
Yeah. So even though it's in the middle of a desert, there are still some lakes that reside, puddles that remain of the giant ancient lake. One of them is called the Humboldt Sink, a tiny puddle that remained right outside Lovelock Cave. And that's why the people living in the cave mostly ate fish. They mostly were able to fish from this little lake. It was lived in for about 4,000 years, up until about the year 440 AD, when a rock collapse made most of the cave inaccessible. And then from that point on, humans stayed in the front part of the cave, which is like 5% of the cave, were unable to access the rest. And the rest was only accessible by bats. And those 4,000 years of human artifacts from humans living there for 4,000 years were slowly buried by meters and meters of bat shit.
Yeah.
See, the story has bat and human shit. Diverse.
Very shit forward.
Yeah. And just like Sage mentioned, in 1911, some miners, David and James, were hired to mine the cave for bat guano. And they removed a shitload of bat guano. I did the math. The amount of bat guano that was removed would total about $29,000 worth in 1911.
Wow.
So just about a cool $1 million worth today. The downside of that is they were bat guano farmers. They were not archaeologists. So a lot of the artifacts they recovered digging up all this bat shit were damaged, destroyed, thrown away, not used. And whenever they found something in that pile that wasn't bat guano, they would throw it into a giant trash pile outside the cave, exposed to the elements. And it wasn't until a few years later that actual archaeologists came to sift through the garbage pile. So that's why the timeline is iffy, like exact timelines of when people lived in the caves and what people are iffy. But there have been, despite that, over 10,000 artifacts discovered. As Sage had mentioned, they have decoy ducks. So not only did they do fishing at this lake was also a big population of ducks, and they had decoy ducks to lure waterfowl in so they could shoot them. Not only that, they have evidence of clothing made of duck feathers and beaks and reeds that would form as camouflage. And according to some Paiute sources, people would sneak into the near Humboldt Sink, that little lake that remains, and the really talented hunters would be able to hide near the reeds and get close enough to the ducks that you'd be able to grab their feet from underneath.
Yoop.
Yeah. They were also prolific fishermen. They had intricate nets that they wove to catch fish, and also fishing lures and bobbers. They also had things like duck calls and intricate baskets and fairly advanced technology. Now, something to note, there are claims of giants living in this cave, and there have been remains of people who were a little bigger than normal. So there's one mummified corpse that is said to be measured by an archaeologist, although it wasn't preserved, it was professionally measured at one time. They measured 6 feet 6 inches tall. This is well beyond the normal height of average person living in pre-colonialization civilization. The average height of the person back then was about 5'6", 5'7", so this is nearly a foot taller, or nearly a foot taller for the average height, which is taller than most people, but is still within the realm of human diversification. Like, we have people of all different heights today, they had people of all different heights back then. And only one of these bigger skeletons was discovered. Now, I don't know what your definition of giant is. I don't know if you considered a 6'6" person a giant. Maybe you do. Or maybe they're just a little more taller than average. Most other human remains that have been found there were of average height for the area. Not very many of these bigger skeletons have been found. And also, most of the tools that were made for people that were average height. Like, there were stone hammers, there were bows, there were all kinds of stuff. And most of it was made to be used by somebody who was about that 5'6" range. They didn't really find any bigger tools. Now, was that person that was found, was that one of these red-headed giant people? And it was just one of the inhabitants of the cave, and the rest were just artifacts from after they had been killed. That's possible. So there may have well been some extra tall red-headed people that lived in Lovelock Cave. According to the coprolite, the human fossilized shit, they had rich protein diets of fish. So they did have the calories to become that height if it was in their genetics. There is historical precedent of this, like people describing their oppressors or the people attacking them as bigger. The Romans described the barbarian Visigoths that attacked them as giants, and they were bigger than Romans on average by a few inches, but not as big as the Romans described. Similar accounts are found from the ancient Chinese, where they described their Hun attackers as giants. In reality, the Hun were about the same height as the Chinese at the time. But because they were their oppressors, it was kind of a trope to describe your oppressors, your attackers, as bigger people. Now, was this a difference of a few inches of height that was exaggerated because they were the attackers and that's a story trope? That's possible.
I'd buy that.
Yeah. And just as Sage had mentioned, a few of the human bones that were recovered from the cave were split open. They were scraped clean of their bone marrow and showed signs of tool usage being used to split and scrape them. And although cannibalism is horrifying, it is a feature of humanity that emerges all over the planet. Now, most indigenous groups and most people do not practice cannibalism, but a few still do. So a group of peoples in the basin being cannibals and feeding on Paiute people is not surprising. Now, I said a few of the bones. I believe it was 3?
Yeah, it wasn't lots.
Yeah, 3 bones were found that showed cannibalism, and this is amongst thousands of examples of human remains found in the cave. So it appears that it might have been an example of things done in famine, in desperation, or maybe for a cultural ritual that occasionally happened. And according to the poo and the remains, cannibalism wasn't ongoing in the cave. But maybe as a show of force, when these people defeated some Paiute people, they ate some of their remains, as happens a lot in war. Eating of human remains after you defeat them comes up in many, many cultures. Maybe that was a big enough example to stick in the stories of the Paiutes, that their enemy had consumed them after they had defeated them.
It'd kind of be like saying all Europeans are cannibals because of the Donner Party.
A little bit. And if these people were universally cannibals, you'd expect a lot more of the human remains to have this bone marrow scraping treatment. But only a few examples are found.
Yeah, only 3 bones.
Yeah.
Have we done an episode on the Donner Party?
No, but we could. That's a good one.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, doomed expeditions, eh?
Getting off on a technicality.
Yeah.
So, there's a few examples of cannibalism. So they were occasionally cannibals, but regular cannibals, the findings in the cave don't really show that. What adds to this is the basin, and probably Lovelock Cave itself, was populated by the skeletons and fossils of other large mammals. Cave bears, mastodons, American lions, and giant ground sloths were likely present. Now, if your elders are telling you stories of a race of giants that once existed, and then in your explorations you find giant mammal bones, you might believe that these massive bones came from massive giants within your myths. So it's plausible to why they would think that these giants from their myths are possibly bigger than the 6-7 feet that have been found. That they're finding cave bear bones and assuming that a giant cave bear thigh is a giant thigh, and they extrapolate it from there. What about the red hair? 2 explanations. The first one is these humans could have had red hair. The red hair is just a pigment mutation, so it could have mutated again, or it could be held in some kind of indigenous DNA that's not very often expressed. They could also be a type of albinism that emerges in indigenous populations, or they could be just the result of soil chemistry interacting with the hair. In caves of similar chemistry, black hair has turned red before. So the mostly black hair of North American indigenous people could have turned red over the years of the soil chemistry interacting with the hair of remains. That could also be an explanation. So maybe red hair, but most likely the soil interacting. As Sage had also said, the skeletons of actual remains were likely displayed in a misleading way. They would pull apart the bones, they would put an inch or 2 between all the joints, between the ankle and the leg bones, and then the knee, and then the hips, and a little space between a few of the vertebrae. You could take an average height person and make them look 7-8 feet tall.
Yeah.
If you spread the bones out enough.
Fancy staging.
Yeah. And then you'd find a skeleton of a short person and put it beside them, and all of a sudden you have the example of a regular human and a giant found in Lovelock Cave.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like that would be the first time anyone has tried to dress something up to make it look bigger. Just saying.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. It's called a cock sleeve. Anyways. So people doing this to skeletons and putting them in sideshows and putting them in museums kind of show an example of how the myth has survived to today. You have this Paiute story of their people being oppressed by these red-headed large people, and them being cannibalized. And there could be truth within those myths to an historical event that actually happened. But it seems like what I'm reading is the European colonizers ran into the Paiute people, ran into their legends of red-headed giants, and basically made a spectacle out of these myths in order to sell tickets to carnivals, or entries into museums. Or in the modern day, there are people selling books and even podcasts and clicks on websites. Yeah, we're part of it as part of making this story into a spectacle. They took factors that were in the story, people found that were a little bit taller, occasionally cannibalistic, showed some history of warring with local peoples. They took the grains of truth and they made it big and bombastic and marketable in order to sell to other white people about, North American paranormal, whatever giants.
Humans began using Lovelock Cave for storage and burials about 4,000 years ago, according to the scientific dating of artifacts. About 10,000 items were taken from Lovelock Cave in the first archaeological dig, including some of the most impressive and incredibly preserved Native American artifacts ever. Duck decoys made of tule reed that date back to the year 2000 BC. The art of weaving those decoys is quickly becoming a lost skill within Nevada's native cultures. Another part of Lovelock Cave's historical importance is the legend of the red-haired giants.
There were supposedly red-headed giants living out on the lake in houseboats, and these houseboats were supposedly lashed together, and the red-headed giants, known as the Sitka, they supposedly terrorized the local Paiutes, stealing their children, their women. So ultimately the Paiutes became quite tired of this and gathered together and attacked them, drove them into the cave, and according to the legend, the Paiutes exterminated them.
I want to welcome you to the Nevada State Museum, and these are some of the collections that we have that we curate for the Bureau of Land Management. We have basketry, which is kind of a marker for the prehistoric people in the region in these dry caves. And this is a hat, possibly doubled as a bowl, that's some 4,400 years in age, and as you can see, decorated, both a decorative rim as well as decoration on the side of the basket. We also have a projectile point that we find commonly on the surface, but in this case, at the base of the point, we have some sinew that was used to lash the projectile point to the addle dart foreshaft. These were projectiles thrown with a throwing stick or addle. Some, again, in this instance, 4,000 years ago. We were able to date the sinew on this particular projectile point. We have an abalone shell ornament that originated in Southern California. This is green abalone, or Haliotis fulgens, and it made a long trek to get up here. We don't know, however, what we had from the Winnemucca Lake Basin that was traded down south. We have artifacts that date to about 2,000 years ago. With the Native Americans from 12,000 years ago on up to the historic time period, basketry was a very important aspect of their life, and it included their clothing. And in this case, we have a basketry cap or hat, and it's very finely woven, and it was probably decorated, almost undoubtedly decorated. It's got a fancy stitch on it, and it was beloved and used for many years, possibly decades, and in its final use, it was a personal mush bowl or possibly a cooking bowl. Artifacts that look like oversized toothpicks are fish gouges used in procuring or fishing for Lahontan cutthroat trout. And you can see from the size of the hooks, or these gouges, that they're after the big ones. And these trout can get up to 42 or so pounds, record size. And the way that they're used is you would skewer the bait with the gouge and set out a trot line, and the fish would gulp the bait. The bone would catch in the throat of the trout, and you would get dinner.
And for many years, human remains were put on display in museums here and elsewhere, but that changed. Most of the bones and skulls that were once considered to be historical artifacts have been returned to tribes for burial.
If oversized bones from the so-called Lovelock giants ever existed, they are no longer available to the public, but their story behind the legend still remains.
Remnants of a vast ancient lake can still be seen in the distance. For generations of first Americans, this was a lush paradise of tules, fish, and waterfowl. Humans have climbed this same narrow path up the jagged mountain for more than 4,000 years. That's how long indigenous peoples lived in and around the Lovelock Cave. The roof of the cave is still coated with soot from countless campfires lit by ancestors of the Paiutes. According to tribal lore, a race of red-headed giants made its last stand in this cave. On internet sites and alien-themed TV shows, the gruesome legend has blossomed, but it's hardly new. Versions have been told and retold in magazines, even scholarly journals, for more than a century. Famed Nevadan Sarah Winnemucca first wrote in her acclaimed book that the Paiutes waged a 3-year war against a tribe of red-headed cannibals before trapping and then killing the last of them inside Lovelock Cave. Her book doesn't mention giants, and mainstream archaeologists have vigorously rejected the entire story, to the point that the State Museum in Winnemucca admonishes visitors at its front entrance that the red-headed giants are a myth.
There have been skeletons pulled out in the Reed collection, and they found some in there, I believe, that were up to 6'2". So when you think about that, even back then, 6 foot was a very tall individual.
Bill Snodgrass, the curator of the Marsden House Museum in Lovelock, thinks there is reasonable basis for parts of the story. In the early 20th century, guano miners began excavating the Lovelock Cave and uncovered thousands of artifacts, along with mummified remains, including a few specimens much taller than the typical Paiute of centuries past. Later, scientific excavations found troves of native antiquities, along with bones. Some human remains were destroyed. Others were sent to museums for display. A few, Snodgrass says, were consumed in bizarre initiation rituals. He adds there is evidence, including basketry, of an unknown culture that lived near the cave. Records show some of them had red hair.
So while I cannot say yes or no they were redheads or not, as, there's even talk that it may have been uric acid changing the color of the hair during decomposition, but there was definitely a different people here.
Many, if not most, of the visitors who end up at the Marsden House Museum have questions about the red-headed cannibals. The locals still enjoy the debate.
No remains or skeletons of truly giant in size were ever recovered. I know the definition of giant is loosey-goosey. I'm picturing something like really big. Like I'm used to giants in D&D.
Or like giants in like Skyrim,
Yeah.
You join the Skyrim space program when you harass a giant,
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, those shitty, like, AI-generated Facebook videos of people digging up, like, a skull and it takes two people to carry the skull?
Yes.
That's what I talk about with giants. I don't want them to be a little bit taller and the rest is just, artistic license. I want fucking big people.
Yeah.
Well, even like people with pituitary gland tumors that have like too much growth hormone, they can get up to, I'm seeing Robert Wadlow was 8'11", which is a very, very large person. I'd call that person a giant. 6'6", yeah, tall.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean the trope of people attacking you being larger. I'm sure there's some historical context because if you're looking at an army or building an army, you're probably going to want the taller, more physically fit people.
Yeah.
In there versus someone who's like 4'3" or whatever. And so that would kind of help. Your sample set would be just naturally differentiated to be taller as a person who's sitting there being attacked,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And, let's say that one remain that was measured that was big, let's say that's representative of this group of people that attacked. Like maybe there's a group of people who have genetics that were a little bit taller. That's been found in archaeological history too. But it's been twisted to become Hollywood and like marketable. Like it looks like red-headed giants are another example of indigenous people's stories that have been twisted and sensationalized to make people money. For other examples of which look to Wendigos, skinwalkers, and thunderbirds. Like these are other other beings from indigenous legends that have been made, into, I don't know, horror movie fodder.
Looking at you, Felix Blackwell, in your shitty fucking book. Stolen Tongues. Don't ever read it. It's horrendous.
Stolen Tongues?
Yeah.
Oh, what an ironic name.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's disgusting.
Just to add something quick to what Big Lee was saying before, at least certain points in the Roman army, you had to be 5'7" to like minimum height.
Yep.
For that exact reason of we want our people to be tall and imposing.
Yeah. And the Visigoths, they were on average about sitting at about 5'11", so they were a few inches taller than the Romans. But the Romans described them as hulking barbarians from the forest.
Okay, so now I'm imagining like an army without height restrictions, and like so this invading force shows up over the horizon and starts marching towards you, but they're all like Danny DeVito.
That's a different kind of scary.
We are the members of the Lollipop Guild.
Speaking of AI, I recently saw a video of Danny DeVito shooting a gun from It's Always Sunny, except he's in the middle of the Lord of the Rings attack in the first movie with the orcs ascend. He just popping off orcs left and right. Yeah.
So I just have a list of other giants in mythology. I just kind of found, I said 10 of the ones that were like the biggest from a bunch of different cultures. So first one, obviously Goliath from the Bible in the Old Testament. He's found in 1 Samuel 17. So he was a giant warrior from the Philistine army who famously faced the young David in a duel. His immense size and strength are central to his legend. David's defeat of Goliath using only a sling and a stone is one of the most iconic stories in religious and Western folklore. Number 2, Ymir, Norse, from Norse mythology in the prose Edda. Ymir is the primordial giant from whom the world was created. According to Norse mythology, Ymir was the first living being, and after he was slain by the gods Odin, Vili, and Ve, his body was used to create the earth, seas, mountains, and sky. Next is Finn McCool from Celtic, like in Ireland. I actually stayed at Finn McCool's by the Giant Causeway, and I got to see all that stuff in Ireland.
Oh yeah, it looks so uniformly geometric.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
So Finn McCool's a legendary Irish giant and warrior associated with the creation of the Giant's Causeway, which is a natural rock formation in Northern Ireland. He's famous for his battles with other giants, including the Scottish giant Benandonner, and for his wisdom and strength.
We should do an episode on Finn McCool.
Yeah. I have so many pictures of the Giant's Causeway because I got to like climb up it.
Also, because it's Irish, his name is spelled Fionn MacCumhale.
Yeah.
But it's Finn McCool.
It's Finn McCool. Next is Jack from English folklore. So while Jack is human, the giant he encounters in Jack and the Beanstalk is one of the most famous giants in English folklore. The giant is often depicted as a fearsome creature living in the castle in the sky, when Jack climbs the beanstalk to steal treasures from him.
Did you know not all giants are hostile? Some of them are outright friendly.
Oh,
like
yeah.
a friendly giant.
Like the BFG?
Yeah. The big friendly giant. Yeah.
And the guy who digs up all our veggies. I don't know how
Jolly Green Giant.
I don't know how he
The
fits
jolly
into our
green
agriculture.
giant. Yeah, he's a jolly guy.
Yeah.
Is he a druid?
Green Giant.
Well, and then there's that giant from Look Up, way up, and I'll call Rusty.
That's the friendly giant.
That's a friendly giant?
That was what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of the BFG from the James and the Giant Peach guy. What's his name? Roald Dahl. The Roald Dahl story.
Then there's the Iron Giant, who was built to be unfriendly, but
then
goes
he
against his nature and learns to be friendly.
That movie made me cry.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
I
The
am
Jotnar. The Jotnar from Norse mythology.
Yeah.
The Jotnar or the Jotun are a race of giants in Norse mythology, often seen as enemies of the gods. They represent chaos and destruction in contrast to the orderly gods of Asgard.
Whoa, chaos and destruction.
They're weird too. Like they're not just like big people. They have like commands over innate magic and can do like weird mystical pocket dimension stuff and secret languages. And they had like as much mastery of the runes as the dwarves.
Yeah.
They're weird.
Mm-hmm. The next is the Polyphemus, which is Greek mythology found in the Odyssey by Homer. Polyphemus is a cyclops, a one-eyed giant encountered by Odysseus during his journey home in the Odyssey. Odysseus and his men trap and blind the cyclops, escaping from his cave by hiding under the sheep.
Yeah.
When Polyphemus tries to let them out.
I got a one-eyed giant.
Got a one-eyed giant right here for you.
And then Odysseus tells the giant that his name is Nobody.
Yeah.
And then when all his giant buddies ask him what hurt him, he says Nobody. Ha, joke.
LOL.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then Odysseus is a slut for it. He's like, my name's actually Odysseus.
Yeah.
Polyphemus is like, hey, Dad. By the way, his dad was fucking Poseidon.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, fuck that guy in a boat. Poseidon's like, oh, you fucking will.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah, pissing off Poseidon when you're doing an ocean journey is like putting your balls in the vice.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Not a good idea. The next one was the giant of Mont Saint Michel from French folklore, specifically from Normandy. This giant is said to have once inhabited the island of Mont Saint Michel. Folklore tells of a giant who would throw large stones at ships and travelers crossing the nearby waters. The giant is sometimes portrayed as a protector of the island, other times as a dangerous creature. And you know what? Same.
Also, King Arthur fucked with him at some point, I think.
Oh, yeah, probably. Next is the Fomorians, which is from Irish mythology.
Oh, yeah.
The
first men.
Yeah. The Fomorians are a race of monstrous giants in Irish mythology. They are typically depicted as cruel and oppressive beings who battled the gods and the Tuatha De Danann, the divine race of Irish deities. The most famous of the Fomorians is Balor, a giant with a deadly eye that could kill anyone who looked into it.
Yeah, bombastic side-eye.
Bombastic side-eye. And next is the trolls from Scandinavia. Trolls are common figures in Scandinavian folklore, often depicted as large, fearsome, and unintelligent beings. While they're typically smaller than some of the mythological giants, trolls are still considered giants in their own right and are frequently portrayed as enemies of humans.
And they say that random jets of rock and field are remains of trolls because when they die, they're supposed to
turn into rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought trolls were small and had funny colored hair.
Yeah.
Those are trolls from the 80s.
Oh.
They're different ones.
And if you want to kill them, you gotta use fire damage. Oh, that was 2 jokes. That was good.
2 jokes.
There's a bridge joke, too.
The last one I wrote about was the Nephilim from the Bible, Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim are mysterious beings mentioned in the Bible, described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. Though their nature is ambiguous, many interpretations suggest they were giants or fallen angels whose action led to the corruption of humanity.
Except in that one movie.
Yeah.
What was it called?
I don't remember.
It was really bad.
With Russell Crowe, Noah?
Yeah.
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah, that movie did not fuck around. They're like, look at these millions of humans drowning.
Look at them struggle.
Yeah. I made Noah into an action hero.
Also, Eric Von Daniken talked a lot about the Nephilim in Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah. Also, if you're omnipotent, all-knowing, why do you have multiple plans that failed before your current plan?
Literally.
Didn't you
know that it was wrong?
Like you knew the Garden of Eden thing wasn't going to pan out. So like why did you do it? Are you not all-knowing?
No, just set you up for failure.
Oh good. Does that sound like a guy you want to worship? The ha-ha prank? Now you guys have to live in sin and pain because you ate the apple?
And now you got bills to pay. Look at what you've done.
Also, you made us curious, you big fucker.
Yeah.
Like
you gave us free will.
You gave us free will. You made us curious, and you say there's one root you're not allowed to taste. Well, guess what fruit we're gonna taste? You knew that. You're supposed to be all knowing. You're not gonna know what I'm gonna get on my tax return next year from the beginning of time. You knew you were gonna eat that apple.
You knew.
Sorry, this is the whole thing we could go. Okay, so. There's lots of legends of giants. There's lots of stories of giants. Like, giants are almost more popular in world history than even, like, dragons. Like, dragons are pretty prolific. But I would say more cultures have stories about giants than dragons. But do we have any hard evidence of giants in our history? Well, it sort of depends on your definition of giant. Like the soundboard demon said, he would consider Robert Wadlow, who died in 1940, a giant. And he was a big man. He was standing at 8 feet 11 inches tall. Nearly a 9-foot tall person. Now, he had a hormone disorder. People that have disorders such as Marfan syndrome, the lengthening of limbs, can reach that height. But I wouldn't consider these races of giants. They're more anomalies of regular humans, genetic or hormonal anomalies. I wouldn't consider them a race of giants. Something that's a bit closer to quote-unquote a race of giants is the Gravettian culture people. They were classic big-game hunter Paleolithic people from Europe who braved the harsh conditions of the Ice Age 33,000 years ago. Although not giant by modern definitions, male remains from the Gravettian culture frequently reached 6'5" and have had an average height of about 6 feet, which were far above most of the surrounding human populations that stood at only 5'5" or 5'6". So they were nearly a foot taller than surrounding cultures, likely due to genetic drift and local populations breeding with each other and, being taller and stronger being good for mammoth hunting and those genes being expressed.
What was the average height of a Neanderthal? Can we find that out?
I think they were pretty tall too. I think they were taller than the average human. Yeah.
Demon's looking it up, it looks like.
Yeah. But, would we consider them giants? I guess, again, it depends on your definition of giant. We have that kind of variation within humanity today. If you look at Laotians, or people from East Timor, the average height for males in both Laos and Timor is about 5'3". The average male height in the Netherlands puts Dutch men an average of 6 feet high. So this isn't even a bigger span than what was found for the Gravettians 33,000 years ago and people surrounding them. So would the Laotians consider the Dutch giants? Maybe. Maybe that depends on your definition of giant. I'm still not convinced. I'm still looking for the fantasy giant fuck-off giants.
Neanderthals were short and stocky, by the way.
Oh,
average of about 5'5", 5'6".
Okay.
As small as 4'10" and as tall as 5'10".
Oh, damn.
In a study of 14 plus 7.
And how tall is Danny DeVito?
4 foot something.
Oh, he's 4 foot something? Oh, no, Danny. So. He's little.
4'10".
4'10". So.
Wow. I work with somebody who's 4'10". I'm not going to be able to unsee that.
Daniel Michael DeVito Jr.
Yeah. So, I don't know. These seems to be within the human extreme. I don't think I'd consider the Dutch giants. I would consider them tall humans. Again, depends on your personal definition of giant. Something closer to giants in my eye is Homo heidelbergensis. It's not a Homo sapien sapien, but it's a type of human, of Homo, that lived about 700,000 years ago. It's either the common ancestor of all humans or a separate lineage. There's a lot of debate. But bottom line is that the height estimates of heidelbergensis put it at about 7 feet tall. Yeah, it's pretty damn tall. And they lived up until about 300,000 years ago, just when modern humans started to emerge. So there was a time when there was crossover between this 7 foot tall Homo and Homo sapiens sapiens. I'm sorry. I know. I do it on purpose. Yeah. Did I put a lot of stink on the Homo?
Every now and again, you got to find a 7 foot tall Homo.
Yeah. I know.
Hi there. I can't do a deep voice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So 7 feet tall. Tall? Yes. Very tall? Also yes. Gigantic?
No.
But it is a separate race or species, though.
It is.
So technically, that does meet your criteria there.
Yeah, they were technically giants, and they did cross over, so there could be actual remains. But, I'm looking for those AI-generated, 20-foot tall giant skeletons. The ones they don't want you to know about.
Yes.
So, something that's a bit closer is Gigantopithecus. Now, Gigantopithecus were basically ancient gorillas, although they're about double the size of modern gorillas, double the weight, all that. They usually travel on all fours, just like gorillas do, but occasionally they stood on their hind legs, just like gorillas today can. And when they did, they were up to 12 feet tall.
Wow, that's
Love that, like, ancient megafauna, you know?
Oh, yeah. So, like, now we got a primate. A little farther from Homo. A little farther from Homo sapiens sapiens, but still a giant primate 12 feet tall.
Yeah.
So, like, those remains have been found. Gigantopithecus lived in, like, around human populations as recently as 20,000 years ago. Could totally be a source for giant legends.
Yes.
So, like, that sort of fits my criteria. It's getting close to my threshold of, like, I think a giant is, like, 15 feet tall.
Okay, so what if the giants, the reason why it's, like, anthropologically speaking, you know, kind of spread across many cultures across the world without, who've had no prior interaction with each other, still have the giant legends. What if it is aliens?
Oh, man.
Just they're just really tall aliens that come and interact with us.
What is it? The white ones, the Pleiades?
Yeah,
like the Pleiadians.
The
yeah,
Nordics?
aren't they?
Yeah, the Nordics.
Yeah,
which are
the racist ones.
Yeah, did the Nordics come off as racist? Because they're like, we are the pinnacle of humanity. We are a goal that you should fort towards. And they're blue-eyed, blonde-haired. That seems like propaganda.
Sure is.
Yeah.
I do want to point out real quick, Gigantopithecus was actually closer to an orangutan than a gorilla. Not even the same family as gorillas. Gorillas are much closer related to us than they are to Gigantopithecus.
Oh, there we go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So sorry, giant orangutan, but still 12 feet tall when standing on its hind legs. Sort of a giant human, a giant primate. Still not a 20-foot tall giant. I'm still looking for I still want the Facebook examples.
It's the Pleiadians.
Also, I'm so sorry, but the type species of orangutans is called Pongo Borneo.
Pongo Borneo?
Their genus is Pongo.
Aw, like the name of that dog from 101 Dalmatians.
Oh, that's fun.
Pongo.
They're critically endangered.
Oh.
Yeah, just circle it around.
Just bring it down. Eh?
Were there immensely gigantic cannibalistic people that lived in Lovelock Cave? Probably not. Was there an aggressive tribe of people who may have been higher than the average height, who that did battle with the Paiute people before written history? That seems more likely, but like I don't think the sensationalized version that we get today is true.
Right.
And as comes standard, there's a lot of legends about giants, but there's very little evidence. Like we get some Gigantopithecines, we get some Homo haliburensis, we get the people of that culture that were higher on average, but like those seem to be a stretch to like these claims that people doing paranormal books and podcasts claim where, you know, the elites want us to hide from the truth of giants in our prehistory. Like a guy being 7 feet tall, like doesn't really fit that mold in my eyes.
So why would the elites want to hide that from us? What do they have to gain? Because none of them are giants.
I don't like that's the other thing. What's to be gained? Why hide the giant? What's the big deal if we find out there's giants out there? It's like it's the same thing as like, you know, the elites don't want you to know that the Earth is flat. It's like if we all found out it was flat, like what difference does it make?
Literally. I still gotta show up to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
I still gotta pay my bills.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't fine. Earth's flat. We're wrong.
Yeah,
okay, let's carry on. Whatever. Now my bills are flat. Yeah.
So hear me out. There was this place called Tartaria.
Oh boy. Okay, Grant. Whatever.
I will point out, and I want to make a bit of a speculation on my part.
Yeah.
Megatherium, the giant ground sloth, which was 20 feet long and could rear up on its hind legs, and was contemporaneous with humans, and was predated by humans.
Yeah.
That's a 20-foot tall beast-looking thing. I bet you someone might see that and be like, giant.
Yeah. Vaguely humanoid, could walk on its hind feet. Like, its skeleton could vaguely be confused with a human skeleton.
Yeah. 2 arms, 2 legs.
Hell, look at a grizzly bear standing up.
Yeah.
You look at it in dark light, it's like, that's a big dude.
Yeah.
I went grizzly bear hunting with my grandpa when I was a kid, and when they're skinned, like the shoulders and the hips of a bear look very, very human. I can see a bare bones being confused with a human.
Yeah, they're oddly fuckable. I mean, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cave bears, I think they also stood like 16 feet tall. Like, they're gigantic things.
Yeah.
Like, you could see where all these legends built upon it, and suddenly, you know, the war stories of your people become exaggerated by these confused remains to be something sensationalized that the elders never intended.
Right.
You know, and that's I think where I've come to it. Maybe there were people that were taller than average that reside in Lovelock Cave that did battle, but I don't think that they were beasts from legends, as the sensationalized versions tell.
Just an enemy tribe, or you know, they were just fighting.
Yeah,
and they got made larger than life, literally.
And I caught a fish that was this big.
Yeah.
I stabbed a dude that was this tall.
Yeah.
He was and giant. Look how good I am. My name's David.
Yeah. Anyways, that's my take on it. Again, I'm just some ignorant white guy. Sorry if I doubted your myth, and like not sorry to the colonizers that sensationalized your myth.
Yeah.
I'm Hood Gallifrey from Occultae Veritatis. In studio with me, I have
Sageberry,
Richard Bigley,
and the soundboard demon.
Poop, pee, mittens, fuck, shit, swears,
giant,
boobies.
Nipple, giant nipple, titty nipple. Yes.
We are professionals.
Love you, bye.